Hello dear students, welcome to another informative session of IIT Pal Biology. I am Rikisha Bhaumik, PGT Biology at Kendriya Vidyalaya Sector 2 RK Puram, New Delhi. Today we will be taking up part 3 of the chapter Environmental Issues for class 12th. Since this is the final session for this chapter, we will be compiling up all the topics of this chapter. Before beginning, let us have a quick recap of what we did in the previous session. In the last session, we learnt about the solid waste and its management. We learnt that there are 3 types of solid waste. The solid waste can be categorized into biodegradable, non-biodegradable and recyclable. If we start segregating these solid waste at the source at which they are generated, the problem of solid waste management can be effectively addressed. Then we learnt about the hospital waste or the biomedical waste. These biomedical waste can be hazardous because it contain pathogens which can cause diseases and other infectious sources. So, they need to be properly disposed of. Then we learnt about electronic junk, which is a gift of the modern lifestyle to us. Along with the development in these sciences, we have so many different types of electronic gadgets, mobiles and laptops, and when they get damaged, they accumulate and pile up as the electronic junk and waste. They has also posed a great problem for us because their disposal is again an issue which needs to be addressed. Then we saw a novel strategy which was used by a plastic sack manufacturer, Ahmed, who developed a powder from the used plastic bags, and he named it as polyblend. This polyblend, when combined with bitumen, was found to increase the strength and durability of the road. Then we have learnt about the green revolution. Indeed, without any doubt we can say that green revolution at that time in 1960s, it made our country self-sufficient. It helped us in facing the problems of famine and hunger. But in the long term, if we analyze, as in the last session I gave you some questions to think over it, think over the questions that in the long run, has green revolution succeeded in making us self-reliant, or has it created some more problems for us? Unfortunately, green revolution popularized the use of agrochemicals, and we know that these agrochemicals are again potent pollutants. They can pollute land, soil as well as the water bodies. And again we know the phenomenon associated with the pollution of water and the soil, which again give rise to many other environmental problems. So, let us explore more about it. Use of certain agrochemicals may lead to ecological damage. Excessive use of chemicals can lead to groundwater contamination, because we know that these chemicals can leach and percolate down the soil, and it can reach the aquifers and lead to groundwater contamination. Agrochemicals can moreover be drained into the water bodies, and when drained into the water bodies, it increases the amount of nutrient present in them, which lead to algal bloom and subsequently leading to accelerated eutrophication. Certain pesticides like DDT have been found to show the phenomenon of biomagnification. We have discussed about biomagnification, wherein we see that there is a successive accumulation of a toxic compound like DDT in the food chain. The food chain is a chain of being eaten and eating others. For example, in a water body, if there is a concentration of DDT, then this DDT will be fed by the zooplankton. The zooplankton will be eaten by the small fishes will be eaten by the large fishes, who will be finally eaten by the fish eating birds. The concentration of 0.005 ppm which was present in DDT actually accumulates on to become about 25 ppm in the body of the fishes, which is significant enough to cause problems in their metabolism. It has been seen that their shells, the egg shells, become very weak and they break prematurely. This is leading to the decline in the bird population adjacent to those water bodies. Again, one more issue which is of concern is the contamination of the food products we are taking. We can hear the news, we have heard of many such news of contamination of food products with pesticides and chemicals because proper care is not taken to wash them or clean them. And again they can accumulate in our body and cause negative impact on our health. The Bhopal gas tragedy, which was a very sad incident in the history of India due to leakage of deadly MIC, methyl isocyanate gas from the Union Carbide factory. Do you know what this factory produced? This factory manufactured insecticides, and that is the reason this MIC, a deadly poisonous gas, was leaked into the environment and led to such a tragedy. So, what can be the solution to deal with these agrochemicals? Earlier, we followed agrochemical based agriculture. Now, the concept of organic farming is being popularized. What is organic farming? If you have followed my previous lectures on microbes in human welfare, you will certainly know what is organic farming. As the name suggests, organic farming is an integrated farming system that strives for sustainability. It depends on living organisms rather than chemicals for improving the agricultural yield. A key belief of the organic farmer is that biodiversity furthers health. Instead of killing all the pests and insects indiscriminately, the farmer believes that more biodiversity will help in promoting the health of his farm. So, it does not believe in completely eradicating the pest, but keeping them at manageable levels by means of checks and balances in the ecosystem. We have also learnt about biocontrols and biofertilizers. If you remember, there are certain microorganisms which can be used as biofertilizer, for instance rhizobium bacteria. Similarly, biopesticides or the insects or the flies can be used as an effective biocontrol agent. Integrated organic farming is actually a cyclical zero waste procedure. This type of farming integrates many other aspects of farming in itself, and it restrains from use of any kind of chemical for the farming purpose. Waste product from one processes are cycled in as nutrient for other process. So, there is no accumulation of waste in this process of organic farming. This results into maximum utilization of resource and increases the efficiency of production of that particular field, and it is also sustainable. It will not affect or impact negatively the soil or the land in long term. Instead, it will just add on to its fertility. Let us see a case study of organic farming. A farmer in Sonipat, Haryana, Ramesh Singh Dagar, he includes beekeeping, dairy management, water harvesting, composting and agriculture in a chain of process which supports each other. It is also an extremely economical and sustainable venture because, as you see, there are so many aspects of farming which is taken up here: beekeeping, dairy management. Apart from the crop, the farmer can also obtain other sources, other products which can earn him extra income. So, it is extremely economical as well as sustainable. There is no need to use chemical fertilizers for crop, as the cattle excreta or the dung is used as a manure. Crop waste is used to create compost. This can be used for increasing the soil fertility or generating natural gas, which can be used as a fuel for the farm. Dagar has also created the Haryana Kisan Welfare Club with a membership of over 5,000 farmers to spread information and help on the practice of integrated farming. So, we see how productive and how encouraging this practice of organic farming was for Ramesh Singh Dagar as well as for many other farmers. So, we can shift on to this kind of farming in order to reduce the burden of pollution from our soil. Next, one more important type of waste is radioactive waste. The nuclear energy, which was initially hailed as a non-polluting way for generating electricity, has actually created some problems for us. It was realized that the use of nuclear energy has two very serious inherent problems. What are those two inherent problems with the use of nuclear energy? Number one is accidental leakage. If accidentally there is a leakage in the nuclear reactor, you can imagine the devastating effect which will be created because of the leakage of these radiations. Secondly, the safe disposal of radioactive waste, the waste which is remaining after the processing process, needs to be disposed safely, because we know that the radioactive emissions are emitted for a long period even after they have been used up. Nuclear radiation is extremely damaging to biological organism because it causes mutations in the DNA, and this occur at a very high rate. At high doses it is lethal, but at lower doses it creates various disorders, and the most frequent of all being cancer. So, in this kind of damage, not only the present generation suffers, but the subsequent generation can also suffer because of the mutation which has taken place in their DNA. No doubt, it is an extremely potent pollutant and has to be dealt with utmost caution. History is full of such examples where we have seen the accidental leakage of nuclear radiations. One such example is 3 Mile Island. 3 Mile Island accident was a partial nuclear meltdown that occurred on March 28, 1979 in reactor number 2 of the 3 Mile Island nuclear generating station in United States. In total, approximately 2.5 megacuries of radioactive gases and approximately 15 curies of iodine-131 was released into the environment. Although there was no injuries or adverse health effect from the 3 Mile Island accident, but it caused concern about the possibilities of radiation induced health effects, principally cancer, in the area surrounding the plant. Next, the Chernobyl nuclear accident. It was the worst nuclear power plant accident in history. It occurred on 26th April 1986 in the number 4 light water graphite moderated reactor at the Chernobyl nuclear power station in Ukraine, USSR, due to reactor design flaws and negligence. There were a total of 137 confirmed cases of acute radiation syndrome and about 38 deaths. Again, I would re-emphasize here that the impact of nuclear radiation is not limited only to the present generation, but is transmitted on to the next generation as well. One more example was the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster. It was an energy accident at the Fukushima 1 nuclear power plant in Fukushima, initiated primarily by the tsunami. Immediately after the earthquake, the active reactors automatically shut down the sustained fission reaction. It was found that the cause of the accident had been foreseeable and that the plant operator, Tokyo Electric Power Company, had failed to meet basic safety requirements such as risk assessment, preparing for containing collateral damage and developing evacuation plans. This disaster is the largest nuclear disaster since the 1986 Chernobyl disaster. So, it is evident that if not properly taken care of and if the nuclear waste is not disposed safely, it can lead to disastrous impact on the environment as well as on humans. So, what can we do for the disposal of nuclear waste? The primary harm from nuclear waste comes from radiation, which can cause health problems in humans and other living organisms. It degrades the quality of surrounding air, water and soil. Nuclear fuel remains dangerously radioactive for thousands of years even after it is no longer useful in a commercial reactor. Low level radioactive waste such as contaminated gloves, they can be disposed of in a landfill site. But what about the higher level waste which may be dangerously radioactive? They are difficult to dispose of. It can be reprocessed to extract nuclear fuel, or it should be encased in glass and left deep underground about 500 meter below the earth's surface in order to come in contact with any of its emissions or radioactivity. So, these are the methods, these are the current methods for disposal of nuclear waste. Next coming on to one more important topic, which is greenhouse effect. Before starting the greenhouse effect, we should know what is greenhouse. Greenhouse or glass house is a small glass house which is used for growing plants, especially during winters in the cold countries where the temperature is too low for supporting the process of photosynthesis. Now, what is so special about the glass? Glass has a property to trap the infrared radiation of the sun. You must be knowing that the infrared radiation is the radiation which produces heat, which produces a heating effect. So, glass can trap these infrared radiations of the sun and cause a heating effect inside the glass house. It is just like warming the inside of a car. When you leave your car for a few hours closed with the glasses, it gets warm up inside. It is the same phenomenon which is utilized in the case of a glass house. Now, what is the similarity of this glass house with the greenhouse effect? Actually, in our atmosphere, there are certain gases which behave like the glass. It has the same property as that of glass to trap the infrared radiation. What are those gases? Those gases are carbon dioxide, methane, CFCs, nitrogen oxide, sulfur oxides, water vapor, etc. And these gases are collectively known as greenhouse gases. These greenhouse gases show the same property as that of a glass and can trap the infrared radiation. Here you can see the contribution of different greenhouse gases in the greenhouse effect, or the increasing greenhouse effect, which is leading to another phenomenon which we will be discussing soon. So, 60% contribution of warming up the earth is of carbon dioxide, 20% methane, 40% CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, 6% nitrogen oxides. So, after having learnt about the glass house, now let us extend this concept to the greenhouse effect. Greenhouse effect is actually like a life supporting system of earth. How is it that possible? For example, if this I am telling you about the greenhouse effect. If we take up the earth's surface, this is the earth's surface and this is the atmosphere, which comprises of the greenhouse gases, and this is the sun, and we know that it is emitting the infrared radiations. So, these infrared radiations, when they enter into the earth's atmosphere, they are long wavelength radiations. These are the infrared rays of the sun, which is responsible for causing the heating effect. Now, what these greenhouse gases do? They will re-emit these long wavelength infrared radiations. Some of them will go back, but some of them will turn into short wavelength radiation and will not be allowed to move out of the earth's surface. They will get trapped into the earth's surface. So, this process continues on and on, the re-emitting the radiations which are coming into the earth's surface, they will be re-emitted in the form of long wavelength radiation until very short wavelength radiations are left, and these short wavelength radiations will get trapped. They will not be allowed to move outside the earth's surface. and this is how the earth's surface becomes warm enough. The optimum temperature of the earth which is required for maintenance of life on it is because of this greenhouse effect. That is why I am saying that it is actually a life support system of earth. Unlike other planets which do not have this system, our earth is fortunate to have an optimum temperature for the survival of life on it. The earth's temperature at surface of earth could have been a chilly -18 degrees Celsius if devoid of this greenhouse effect, and you know, no life could have been possible in that situation. But the optimum temperature of 15 degrees Celsius necessary for the survival of life on earth is due to this greenhouse effect. Here you can see the diagram. The infrared radiations, they are being re-emitted, and the short wavelength infrared radiation, they get trapped in. The greenhouse gases absorb long wave radiation from the earth and emit it again towards the earth. The cycle continues till the earth's surface has no long wave radiations to emit back. Now, what is global warming? How is it associated with greenhouse effect? We know that all the major greenhouse gases, they are emitted when we burn the fossil fuels, and because of the increasing use of fossil fuels, they are burning in the industries and the automobiles, the greenhouse gases, they are increasing more and more, and this increase in the greenhouse gases is causing increased or enhanced greenhouse effect, which is known as global warming. It is leading to the warming of the entire globe. During the past century, the earth's temperature has increased by 0.6 degrees Celsius. The increase in greenhouse gases, predominantly carbon dioxide, is due to burning of fossil fuels, deforestation. Forests act as carbon sink, they can absorb carbon dioxide, but because they are no longer present, the amount of carbon dioxide is increasing, and other anthropogenic activities add on to this. Similarly, methane is emitted by natural sources such as wetland as well as human activities such as leakage from the natural gas system and the raising of livestock. The intestine of ruminants, we know that methanogens are present in them and they can release methane gas, and that is why we use the cow dung for producing biogas, if you remember. So, what are the sources of this global warming? What are the reason? Burning of fossil fuels in industries, automobiles, thermal power plant, automobile exhaust, fertilizers, livestock waste, landfills, paddy fields, livestock ranches, they are releasing different kinds of greenhouse gases. The use of aerosol, cans, refrigerant, ACs, plastic foams. Can you recognize this one? Yes. This is the CFC, chlorofluorocarbon. So, human activities, these are the human activities which has been listed, and it is leading to release of these greenhouse gases more and more into the atmosphere. Carbon dioxides, chlorofluorocarbons, methane, nitrous oxide, and this is leading to an enhanced greenhouse effect contributing to warming of the entire earth, which is known as global warming. So, what can be the effect of global warming on us? If the temperature is rising, it will lead to deleterious changes in the environment. There will be odd climatic changes. For example, we have seen the El Nino effect. We know about more and more of disasters, floods and famines occurring, which was previously unknown. The melting of polar ice cap will occur. Even in India, we would see the Himalayan snow caps getting melted. It will result in the rise in sea level, and many of these smaller islands and coastal areas will get submerged in it. And if the water is more because of the floods and all, then it can lead to waterborne diseases. It can lead to the breeding of many mosquitoes and flies, and it can lead to many epidemics and diseases. The total spectrum of changes that global warming can bring is under active research. So, what should we do to control global warming? Cutting down the use of fossil fuel should be the prime. Improving efficiency of the energy usage, whatever energy we are using, we should be able to efficiently use it so that there is no unburned residues left into the environment. Use of clean fuels and renewable source of energy should be promoted. We should reduce deforestation. Instead, we should plant more and more trees and slow down the growth of human population. International initiatives are taken to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. One such international initiative was taken, and this is known as the Kyoto Protocol for global warming. It is an international treaty which extends the 1992 United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, popularly known as UNFCCC. It commits the state parties or the participating countries to decrease the greenhouse gas emissions based on the fact that the global warming exists. It is actually existing, and the human made carbon dioxide emission is its cause. The Kyoto Protocol was adopted in Kyoto, Japan on 11th December 1997 and entered into force on 16th February 2005. There are currently 192 parties to the protocol. The protocol is based on the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities. Common means our responsibility is common to save this earth, to reduce the carbon dioxide emission, but since the world is divided into developed, underdeveloped and developing countries, in keeping the concern of development in mind, the responsibilities are differentiated. So, this has devised many new tools like the clean development mechanism, carbon trading, and many new such initiatives have been taken up, so that there is a differentiated responsibility, but overall there is a decrease in the emission of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. Copenhagen Accord endorses the continuation of Kyoto Protocol, which ended in 2012. Next we shall move on to the next important topic, which is ozone depletion. We know that on earth we have been provided with many such life saving blankets or life saving devices which are protecting us. For instance, we saw the greenhouse effect, but because of the anthropogenic activities, because of the increasing population and pollution, we have converted it into a problem for us. Likewise, we also have a life saving blanket which is known as ozone layer. It is also known as the good ozone. The good ozone is found in the upper part of the atmosphere called the stratosphere. It acts as a shield because it absorbs the harmful ultraviolet radiations from the sun. These ultraviolet radiations are harmful for the living organisms, and this ozone layer which is present in the stratosphere, it is not allowing these UV radiations to enter into the earth's environment. These UV rays are highly injurious to living organisms, since DNA and proteins of living organisms, they preferentially absorb UV rays, and when they do so, they will break the high energy bonds and the chemical bond within these molecules, degrading them and leading to mutations. The thickness of the ozone in a column of air from the ground to the top of the atmosphere is measured in the term of Dobson unit. So, in order to measure the thickness of ozone, we use the unit Dobson. So, this ozone formation and degradation is a continuous process in the environment. Ozone gases continuously form. The ozone, what is ozone? It is actually O3, 3 atoms of ozone, oxygen. Oxygen gas is continuously formed by the action of UV rays on the molecular oxygen. It can also be degraded into molecular oxygen in the stratosphere. But there should be a balance between the formation and degradation. If degradation exceeds the formation, then it will lead to depletion of that layer, and that is exactly what is happening right now. The CFCs or the chlorofluorocarbons, which was rampantly used in various products by us around in 1980s, for example, in aerosols, in refrigerants, in ACs, coolants, sprays. These CFCs was found to be the reason behind the depletion of ozone. CFC, the full form is chlorofluorocarbon. They has enhanced the process of ozone degradation. How? Because they move upward and reach the stratosphere. Here you can see this is the earth surface which I have shown, and the release of CFCs, refrigerants, ACs, aerosols, they contain chlorofluorocarbons. These are the various layers of the atmosphere, troposphere, then stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, ionosphere likewise. So, these CFCs, they are released, they will move up into the atmosphere. These CFCs consist of chlorine, these are actually chlorine compounds. When the UV rays fall on them, they break down and it releases the free radical, highly reactive free radical of chlorine atom. These chlorine atom can further combine with the ozone layer, the ozone present in the chlorine, and initiate a type of reaction. You can see here chlorine plus ozone, they are forming ClO, chlorine oxide plus O2. So, this ozone they got degraded and they formed O2, diatomic oxygen. Again you can see ClO plus ozone, this will again react with further molecules of ozone to again form O2. So, this is continuously resulting in the depletion of the ozone layer and the ozone layer start getting depleted. Once it gets depleted, now the UV rays can easily enter into the earth's atmosphere. More UV rays can enter and we know that if the UV rays they enter into the earth's atmosphere, they will cause skin cancer, cataract, various kind of mutation, they will kill the aquatic organisms and they can be lethal to the plants and lower organisms. So, this is how the depletion of ozone layer is taking place in our environment. The CFCs they have permanent and continuing effects on ozone layer. The depletion of ozone is particularly marked over the Antarctic region. The Antarctic region, we can see that the depletion of ozone is maximum there. This has resulted in the formation of large area of a thinned ozone layer which is known as ozone hole. You can see here in the photograph which has been taken in subsequent year from 1980s to 90. And you can see this violet region, this is showing the ozone hole, and you can see that in 1980 as compared to 1980, 1985 the ozone hole has increased its area. Similarly, in 1990 it has again increased. So, this is how the ozone layer is getting depleted. Ultraviolet radiation, let us learn more about them. The ultraviolet radiations of wavelength shorter than UVB are almost completely absorbed by the earth's atmosphere when ozone layer is intact. UVB damages DNA and leads to mutation. It may cause aging of the skin, it is specifically deleterious for the skin which is in direct contact with these radiation. They damage the skin along with causing various types of skin cancer. In human eye, the cornea, they absorb the ultraviolet B radiations, a high dose of which can cause snow blindness. A snowy appearance over the cornea is formed which is known as cataract or snow blindness. UV radiations can be lethal to plants and to aquatic organisms. So, what has been done to control the depletion of ozone layer? Again, international level conventions took place to address this problem, and as a result Montreal Protocol was signed. It is an international treaty which was signed at Montreal, Canada in 1987. It is a protocol to the Vienna Convention for the protection of ozone layer. In recognition of the deleterious effects of ozone depletion, it intended to control the emission of ozone depleting substances. On February 11, 1992, the United States, responding to a recent scientific findings, announced that the phase out of the production of CFCs, halones, carbon tetrachloride and methyl chloroform would be accelerated and that these substances would be phased out by December 31, 1995. So, you can see that the use of CFCs has reduced to a large extent now. Now, let us move on to the next topic, which is degradation by improper resource utilization and maintenance. Till now, we have talked about the different kind of pollutions, different type of polluting agents which has caused deleterious effects on our environment. But if we do not use our resource properly and we do not maintain them, it can also lead to degradation of our precious natural resources. Major problems being faced by us because of the improper use of our resources are: number 1, soil erosion; number 2, desertification; number 3, waterlogging; and number 4, soil salinity. Now, let us discuss them one by one. Soil erosion. Soil formation takes place by the process of weathering. We know that soil is also one among the most valuable resource for us, and the process of soil formation is known as weathering. This process is a slow and gradual process. What happens in weathering? It is the process by which the rocks they break down due to abiotic and biotic factors of the environment. And due to this weathering and subsequent formation into smaller and smaller particles, the top layer of soil, which is good for our crops, is obtained. But this valuable resource is again being affected by us by the anthropogenic activities like over cultivation, unrestricted grazing, deforestation and poor irrigation practices. All this has made the soil loose, and now the soil can be easily removed. The top soil, which is rich and fertile, it is removed, and this removal of the top layer of soil is known as soil erosion. What can happen because of soil erosion? You are right, more and more soil erosion will rapidly turn our land into deserts, and we know that deserts are less productive. Continued soil erosion at a place leads to desertification. Desertification is the process by which fertile land becomes desert as a result of improper resource utilization done by humans. Desertification affects a wide range of services provided by ecosystem to humans. We know the ecosystem services like the provisioning services, we obtain food and other product, the supporting services like pollination, seed dispersal, regulating of the ecological balance in the environment, and cultural or aesthetic and spiritual services which is provided by the ecosystem services, or the ecosystem will be affected badly. It can lead to famines, species extinction and environmental degradation. A total loss of biodiversity will occur if there is desertification, and just because we are not able to maintain a valuable resource which has been gifted to us by this nature. This is a picture of desertification taken from the Ministry of Environment and Forest website. Next important problem is waterlogging, and this is associated with agriculture and irrigation. If irrigation is done without proper drainage of water, the water is not being drained off regularly from the fields, it can lead to waterlogging in the soil. And what will happen? The plant root cells, they need oxygen to live. Typically, they get it in the air spaces between soil particles, but when soils are waterlogged, all the air is pushed out by all the water. Cells, they basically drown and the roots die off. These waterlogged soils release increased amount of nitrous oxide, a particularly damaging greenhouse gas also, additionally causing the global warming. And this waterlogging leads to the soil salinity. Beside affecting the crop, it draws the salt or the nutrients to the surface of the soil. As the water keeps on evaporating, the salt will accumulate over the soil. The inorganic salts get deposited in the form of a thin crust due to evaporation of water logging in the field. It then starts accumulating at the roots of the plants. This increased salt content is inimical to the growth of crops and is extremely damaging to agriculture. Problems of waterlogging and soil salinity has risen, especially in the wake of green revolution. Now, moving on to next valuable resource, which is forest. You can see here in this article which was published in the Hindu about the benefits of forest. There are immense benefits of forest, innumerable number of benefits which we derive from the forest. They are the home to more than 300 million people worldwide. and they provide so many useful products to us. They mitigate the climate change, they regulate the water cycle, in turn providing fresh water to us, the wildlife and biodiversity is enhanced, and the energy needs are fulfilled. Even the industries, they thrive on the forest products. So, if we ignore forest, we should do it on our own peril. But we are engaged in this practice of deforestation for a very long time now, to the extent that now we have started realizing the effect of deforestation. Destruction of forest in order to make the land available for other purposes of use to us is known as deforestation. Almost 40% of the forest have been lost in the tropics. At the beginning of the 20th century, forest covered about 30% of the land in India. By the end of the century, it shrunk to a mere 19.4%. The National Forest Policy of India recommends 33% forest cover for plains and 67% for hills, and we are no more closer to this 33% forest cover. As you can see in this picture, that 129 million hectare of forest has been lost worldwide between 1990 and 2015, which is equivalent to the area of the size of South Africa. You can imagine the level at which, the pace at which deforestation has been done. So, what are the causes of deforestation? A number of human activities, they contribute to deforestation, such as number 1, agriculture. We are converting the forest to agricultural land to feed the growing human population. We are obtaining commercial products like timber, firewood, paper, etc., and for that we are cutting off the trees. For setting up of industries, residential settlements and urbanization, we need land, and for that again we are clearing up the forest. For cattle ranching and plantations, mining for oil and coal, overpopulation, it is contributing to the increased burden on our resources and forest. There has been some practices which has also contributed in deforestation. For example, Jhum cultivation. It is also known as slash and burn agriculture. It was very common in northeastern states of India and has significantly contributed in deforestation. So, what is done here? The farmers, they cut down the trees of the forest and burn the plant remains. The ash is used as a fertilizer and the land is then used for farming or cattle grazing. After cultivation, the area is left fallow or remain as such for several years, so as to allow its recovery. But with the growing population, this phase has been given up and now the land is extremely pressurized. The farmer then move on to the other areas and repeat this process. So, the Jhum cultivation, it has contributed significantly in the deforestation. Now, what can be the effect of deforestation on us? Number 1, ecological imbalance, as is evident, because it destroys the habitat. Habitat destruction will lead to species extinction and loss of our valuable biodiversity. It will lead to disturbance in the hydrologic and nutrient cycle. It will result into soil erosion, desertification. Secondly, it will lead to global warming, because you know that forest or the trees, they act as carbon sink. They can hold a lot of carbon in their biomass, and if there are no forest, then there will be no sink for the carbon and the concentration of carbon will keep on increasing, which will in turn lead to global warming. Occurrence of flood and famines and other catastrophes will be more frequent. So, what can we do to control deforestation? Opposite of deforestation is reforestation. It is the process of restoring a forest that once existed, but was removed at some point of time in the past. So, we can do reforestation. It can be accelerated by plant trees. Although reforestation is a natural process, but it can be accelerated if we take due consideration of the biodiversity that earlier existed in that area and plant the same trees and the same animals are brought there. Forest law should be strengthened to curb the felling of trees on large scale. Afforestation is again a term which is related to the establishment of a forest or strand of trees in an area where there was no previous tree cover, there was no previous forest there, but we can build a forest there. This process is known as afforestation. The concept of managed forest should be encouraged for the industries. What is the concept of managed forest? It believes that for every tree harvested, if you are cutting a single tree, several more should be planted or regenerated in its place. Effectively following these steps can lead to solving this problem of deforestation. Now, although we have seen in this chapter that majorly humans are responsible for all the environmental problems which we are facing, but there are certain examples of people's participation in conservation of forest. People's participation is crucial in conservation of forest, because if people are actively participating, they can conserve the forest. It has a long history in India. Many cultures in India promote peaceful coexistence between humans and biodiversity. Many trees like banyan, peepal, tulsi, they are of religious significance to many, and there are many sacred groves, as we have learnt in the chapters of biodiversity, and these sacred groves, they are conserved because of their religious significance. So, if we start planting more and more trees, we do plantations, we can effectively solve the problem of conservation of forest. Let us do a case study of Jodhpur in Rajasthan with reference to the conservation of forest. Here I would cite you one story. It is a story of Jodhpur in Rajasthan. In 1731, the king asked one of his ministers to arrange wood for constructing a new palace. The ministers and workers, they went to a forest near a village inhabited by Bishnois. Bishnoi community is well known for conservation of forest and their peaceful coexistence with nature. The Bishnoi community, since they are known for its peaceful coexistence with nature, when the minister and the worker, they arrived for cutting off the forest, they thwarted them. The tree species for which the Bishnoi showed resistance was the tree of Khejadi or Khejri. This tree enriches the soil nitrogen and provides fodder, and during drought and famine, the bark of this tree can be mixed with the flour for human consumption. So, it was of special significance for the Bishnoi community. A Bishnoi woman, Amrita Devi, she showed exemplary courage by hugging a tree and daring king's men to cut her first before cutting the tree. The tree mattered much more to her than her own life. Sadly, the king's men did not heed to her pleas and cut down the tree along with Amrita Devi. Her 3 daughters and hundreds of other Bishnois followed her and thus lost their life saving trees. Nowhere in the history do we find a commitment of this magnitude where human beings sacrifice their lives saving trees. In her recognition, the Government of India has instituted awards. Amrita Devi Bishnoi Wildlife Protection Award is given to individuals or communities from rural areas for the protection and conservation of forest. Rajiv Gandhi Wildlife Conservation Award is also given. At international level, we have Whitley Award for Wildlife Conservation, J. Paul Getty Award for Conservation Leadership. The purpose of telling you this is that the people or the individuals or the communities, they are now being incentivized in order to protect the wildlife, in order to protect the forest. One such example is Chipko movement. In 1974, local women of Garhwal Himalayas showed enormous bravery in protecting trees from the axe of contractors by hugging them. People all over the world have acclaimed the Chipko movement. Sundarlal Bahuguna is among one of the early environmentalists of India, and he was the leader of Chipko movement. Next is a concept of joint forest management, which was introduced by the Government of India in 1980s. Under this concept, the protection and management of forest is undertaken with the help of local communities. As the name suggests, it is joint forest management. The state forest department along with the local people, they manage together the forest so that it is a beneficial approach for both of them. It helps in preserving the forest because the local people, they are more aware about the forest and their resources. There is a partnership between the state forest department and the local community. In return for their services to the forest, the communities get benefit of various forest products. They can use the forest products also, but at harmony with them. It believes in sustainable development. Sustainable development means development without compromising the environment. The environment should also be protected, and we should be judicious in use of our resources. We should preserve our nature and our environment. So, we have completed most of the topics of this chapter. Now, let us summarize what we have learnt in this session. We learnt about the organic farming. We saw the example of farmer Ramesh Dagar, who does organic farming and who encouraged many other farmers to do organic farming. We have learnt about the radioactive waste and how harmful they can be for us if proper care is not taken for their disposal. We have learnt about the greenhouse effect and the global warming. We have learnt about the ozone depletion in the stratosphere and its effect on us. We have learnt about the conventions and protocols for the various phenomena which are contributing to climate changes like global warming, the Kyoto Protocol and the Montreal Protocol for ozone depletion. We have learnt about the soil erosion and desertification. We have learnt about water logging and soil salinity. All these concepts show us the improper utilization of resources and no maintenance of our valuable resources being done. We have learnt about deforestation, its causes, its effect and control. We have learnt about the slash and burn agriculture or the Jhum cultivation, which has contributed its bit in the deforestation, and we have also seen the exemplary stories of people's participation in conservation of forest. So, we have come across so many environmental issues. We have taken up so many topics relating to environment. Environment is of much concern to all of us around the world at international level, and it is often in the news. As you can see from these headlines, odd even to kick in if there is a pollution emergency, a verdict given by Supreme Court on December 3rd, 2016. Researchers find way to convert sewage into biofuel. Indian Express. MIT researchers turn waste gas into liquid fuel. So, you can see that we are doing reverse engineering. We are learning from the nature and we are using the knowledge of our nature, of our ecology, of the mechanism being operational in nature to convert it into solutions which can help us in addressing the environmental problems. Photosynthetic solar cells, they convert atmospheric carbon dioxide sunlight into fuel. Sci News. Clean energy, Tesla to power an entire island with solar energy. Delhi High Court questions the need of MCD and DDA over mismanagement of landfill sites. Paris, Madrid, Athens and Mexico will ban the most polluting cars and vans by 2025 to tackle air pollution. So, what does these headlines show? These headlines show that all over the world we are very much concerned and affected by the climate change and the impact of pollution and various other phenomena of environment. So, I hope you have learnt about lot of topics relating to environment. You are in a better position to understand the phenomenon which is taking place in our environment, the interaction which is taking place between the human beings, their activities and the environment. With this knowledge, I hope that you will not only restrict this knowledge to books or to notebooks, but you will apply this in your daily life. You should apply these measures, these energy saving measures, reducing the pollution and planting more and more trees at your individual level. Many of you should try to find out more solution. When you are in a position to find out or devise novel strategies, you should do so, and you should always think that we should always live in harmony with our environment, because our sustenance is intricately linked with it. Thank you and have a nice day.